I have some bad news that I want to share. Yesterday I was robbed, losing my laptop, my tablet, my speakers, and pretty much all of the technology that I carry around while I travel. What I want to do in this video is just tell you a bit about this story, how this happened, and most importantly, what I've actually learned from this, how I'm processing this experience, and a little bit of wisdom about just in general what we do when life gives us a kick in the ass. 2 days ago, I arrived at this beachside cabana, which is in a small coast town called Montanita in Ecuador. My partner just arrived in the country, so we've been planning a trip for about 2 months now, maybe a month and a half, to spend some time in Ecuador, go to the beach, relax a little bit and just enjoy some time together before she goes back to Peru. So I packed everything up, we went straight to the bus stop and caught a bus to where we are now, which is about a 3-hour trip. So during the bus ride, what I always do is I store my main bag between my legs so it's safe, it's secure. As we got off the bus, we jumped straight into a taxi and came directly to this cabana. It wasn't until the next morning that I noticed I had been robbed. First I realized that my laptop wasn't in the compartment that I usually put it in. So obviously my laptop's around somewhere, I just misplaced it, I'm not sure where it is. I started looking for a little bit, then maybe a minute later when I actually couldn't find it and I looked at through all the usual places, that's when I'm starting to think, okay, this isn't good, where's my laptop? I just had it with me the previous morning, I had it with me coming here, it should be here, why is it not in its pocket? And then I noticed that my speakers were gone and okay, that's very strange that my laptop and the speakers are gone, and that's when I'm starting to worry a little bit, thinking, this isn't a good situation, maybe someone took it, maybe someone came into the cabana and I don't know what happened, but it's not here, it's clearly not here. I'm looking around, I'm trying to figure it out, still thinking maybe there's a little bit of hope that, okay, I probably just misplaced it, I'm probably just jumping to conclusions here, and it must be around this apartment somewhere. Where else could it be? I didn't put it anywhere. And then I realized that my tablet was also missing, and this is when things started to get real, and I'm thinking, okay, it's not just one thing that I misplaced, all of my technology is gone, all my most valuable items that I keep in this backpack are gone. Of course, that is my whole life essentially in this backpack. I'm quite careful on where I put it, where I keep it, it's always with me, it's always in my line of sight, so I'm never going to be somewhere without it unless it is in a hotel room, unless it is in an Airbnb where I can lock the door and rest assured that it's okay. Before this, I have been robbed 3 times, once in Brazil, once in Colombia, once in Ecuador, which was actually in the same beach town. But in these situations, it was my phone that was stolen, and it was always when I was walking around, often when I was drinking and sort of making myself a bit of a vulnerable target, something that I learned this lesson from. And in these cases, I was either pickpocketed or I was violently robbed or near violently robbed, attacked, and had my stuff taken from me, had my phone taken from me, which was on my person at the time. But I've never had an experience where someone actually broke into my apartment and robbed me. So at this point, I'm still trying to figure it out. I have these thoughts racing, I'm thinking, surely this can't happen again. I'm making sure I learn all these lessons, I'm hyper vigilant about my stuff. I'm really careful now when I'm traveling. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not running into the same mistake again, because I am tired of being robbed, I am tired of having my stuff taken. There comes a point after 3 times of losing your phone and going through all the stress of trying to recover it, trying to figure it out, getting a new phone, having no logistics, that you're I'm done with this, I don't want to go through this again. But, there's this stark realization that, guess what, this has happened again, whether you like it or not. And part of me is jumping to acceptance, saying, you know what, nothing lasts forever, eventually you're going to lose this stuff. Another part of me is saying, maybe there's a way we can recover it, maybe there's still some sort of hope. One thing that I find very interesting about this story is the night before I found out that my stuff was missing, I actually had quite a vivid dream of someone trying to enter the cabana. And I remember thinking, okay, this is a strong feeling. Of course, I didn't know that I was in a dream at the point, but upon waking up, I was thinking, oh, I wonder why I had that dream. That was quite a vivid dream. But then maybe half an hour after waking up, that's when I realized that I was actually robbed and I've lost my stuff. And I had no idea that I lost my stuff before I had this dream. So I don't think there's any way that it could have translated into the dream that I was robbed or I had been robbed. Unless the only possible explanation is if there was a part of my subconscious that knew I had been robbed. For example, if I noticed there was a weight difference in my bag, which I didn't at the time, I didn't notice if there was any weight difference. The other thing that a couple of people have said, that maybe these people broke in during the night while I was sleeping, which is sort of a terrifying thought, and that was my subconscious picking up on the actual situation unfolding in real time. Maybe they opened the door, they saw my bag, just quickly rummaged through it, saw my technology, grabbed it and left. So honestly, I'm at a loss. This whole thing is very perplexing to me. I really have no idea how someone could have taken my stuff, when it might have happened, especially considering I'm quite vigilant with my things, and I had it the morning before. So it doesn't leave a long window for someone to actually nick 3 of my most valuable items from my main backpack. This time, once I was playing through my head and I actually realized that I had been robbed, I came to acceptance pretty much instantly. I realized, okay, there's no point denying this has happened again. How am I going to react to this? So it was a much more conscious reaction this time around than it was the other times around. The stuff that I lost, okay, you know what, it's not the end of the world, it's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. And maybe it's actually a sign that this can be a fresh start with some of these projects. You know, I wasn't super happy with them anyway. I feel like I can do better now. Most of the important stuff is online, or I've got it on my phone as well. So I'm sort of treating this as a life lesson, as I think whenever something goes wrong in life, we need to treat it as a life lesson. We need to think, what can I learn from this experience? Part of me was disappointed that I was robbed again, but also a part of me was thankful that I still have my phone and that none of my cards are missing. I still have all of my bank cards, I still have my passports. The most essential things that I need for traveling, I have. Maybe this is a lesson that it's time to pivot my trajectory in terms of my projects, what I'm focusing on, what I'm putting my energy into. And another part of me is just thinking, okay, what can I learn from this experience? What is the main lesson here? And I've been thinking about this a lot since this happened yesterday morning, and you know, I don't have an answer for that. I don't have a clear answer on why this happened again. I feel like it was out of my control, because if I was being clumsy, if I was putting myself in a vulnerable situation, then I feel like I would have a deep regret. But I wasn't doing that. I wasn't clumsy. I was taking care of my stuff. I was doing everything within my power to mind my stuff and be careful and take every safety measure, everything I could do to ensure that, you know, this doesn't happen. So part of me feels at peace knowing that, okay, this happened mysteriously, somehow, for some reason, but I do genuinely believe that it's out of my control. I do genuinely believe that there is a deep meaning to all of this, that this wouldn't just happen spontaneously after taking all of these measures to ensure the safety of my stuff if there wasn't a deeper meaning to it. And I think everything in life, there is a deep meaning to it. There is some metaphysical meaning to it. There is some lesson that we can learn from these experiences. So when something like this happens now, through all the work I've done on myself, all the inner work, through being in many situations that are uncomfortable, that are difficult, I feel like accepting this situation wasn't as hard this time around. There wasn't any current of blame, and I wasn't trying to point the finger. I wasn't looking at someone to pin this on. Oh, you know, this is the responsibility of the Airbnb. You know, this is my fault. Even just blaming myself and having that guilt, I didn't feel that at all. More, it was just a bit of a soft blow, thinking, shit, this happened again. Yeah, of course, some disappointment, some sort of a little bit of lamenting over the situation, but not much. It was more, okay, after a couple of hours of sort of feeling these emotions and processing everything in my mind and thinking, fuck, this happened again. It was quite quick to accept the situation for what it is and realize that it's not the end of the world. To be grateful for what I have in life, that I still have money in my bank account, that I still have my phone, that I still have my health. Thinking that, many things happen to people that are so much worse than having some of your stuff stolen. People are raped, people are murdered, people are dying from starvation and poor water sanitation, millions and millions of people. Some people have terrible, terrible lives. So for me to cry about these little things that I was robbed, sometimes we just need to put it into perspective and realize that life is good. And part of this experience as well, part of why this happens, at least I believe in my perspective, is to put it into perspective, is to show us that, if we're thinking about this or we're getting caught up into these little things in life, like I was getting caught up in these decisions, what country do I want to move to, how am I going to financially support myself and where I go, what is a job going to look like, do I want to go back to Peru, do I want to go to Colombia, what do I want to do? I started getting too caught in my mind. And I feel like that this might have been an opportunity from the universe to say, hey Daniel, focus on what's important. And I feel like it really has put that in check. Because now these other things that I was thinking about, they don't really matter that much. And that's the beautiful thing about that, is it really does help me see everything from a different perspective. I do live a lucky life in general. Yeah, shit happens in life. That's part of life. Shit happens and we can't control it. Sometimes things just happen that are out of our control. Sometimes life will throw you a curveball. But part of life is that how are you going to react when things don't go your way? Because personal growth, spiritual growth is easy when life is going your way, when life is running smoothly. We can say that, oh, we are spiritual masters, I've mastered everything, I've done all the inner work, I've done all the personal development, I know my shit. But that tends to only happen when life is cruising and, life is on easy mode. But the true test of your personal growth and your spiritual growth and your just like who you are as a person, your judgment of character, is when life punches you. What sort of person are you when life does not go your way? When something happens and you are forced into a situation where you say, okay, this is real, I have to deal with this situation. That is the true judgment of your character. That is the true judgment of your personal growth and your spiritual growth. It is the way that you react to these situations. And I'm not saying that you should bypass your feelings or your emotions, because you shouldn't. It's very, very, very important to make sure that you are actually working through your emotions, you are working with them. Because it's also easy to put a facade over that and say, okay, I'm just going to pretend I'm happy. Oh, everything's okay, everything's love and light, while you're dying inside. Because if you do that and it's not actually genuine, then you are causing a lot of damage to yourself in the long run. So part of something shitty happening to you in your life is you do need to sit with the emotions. You need to process it. You need to feel whatever is happening. If you feel angry at the world, at yourself, at other people, allow yourself to feel angry. If you feel resentful at the world, at yourself, at other people, allow yourself to feel resentful. If you feel guilt, if you feel shame, if you feel disappointment, if whatever weird cocktail of emotions is coming up, you need to feel that. You need to make sure that you aren't bypassing these emotions, because this is very, very important. And I've seen this fuck up a lot of people, that when they bypass their emotions or they just pretend that everything is okay, then, it really does them harm in the future. They're not actually solving the root cause. They're not actually doing the inner work. They're not actually like a healed person. And that's the biggest distinction. So part of what we do in these sort of situations when life isn't going our way, it's to sit, it's to experience whatever's happening, process it, Allow yourself to be a channel for these emotions. Allow everything to pass through you, because that is where we learn these lessons. This is where we actually gain that wisdom, and that deeper wisdom starts shining through, where, that's where those feelings of peace, of stillness, of inner calm start to come through, where genuinely we start to feel, okay, life isn't so bad. This is actually okay. I can work with this situation. But those feelings must be genuine. The nice thing about my life is I've been in many challenging situations. I've been traveling for 10 years. I've been robbed 4 times now. I've nearly died in certain situations. I have gone through almost every emotion you can think of. Part of that is training. That is the universe training me, and I get better at dealing with these situations every time that it happens. Genuinely, things happen many times until we actually get an act for figuring out how to work through this the most efficient way, figuring out what to do both logically, strategically, emotionally, intuitively. How do we put all of these worlds together to work with the hand of cards we were given, to work with a certain situation that we find ourselves in? Part of these situations, the way that I perceive it is a way of the universe training us. This is where our personal development actually matters. It is an opportunity for us to do the inner work, to do the shadow work. Because again, life is easy when it's easy. We don't have this incentive to go through the hard yards, to actually go deep into our shadows and do this deep-rooted healing. We don't have that incentive. We don't have, that opportunity knocking at our door and asking us to do that work. So when a situation like this happens, that opportunity, you can't avoid it. You have to do the inner work. You have to make sure that you are actually, getting through this, because if you're not doing the work, it's just going to keep happening again and again and again. And at the same time, you're not going to get any better at processing this. So every time something happens, you're going to have the same reaction. You're going to go into the same automatic modes of behaving and reacting to these certain situations. And it's going to be extremely painful every time. You're going to suffer a lot every time it happens, and you'll probably notice trends as well, that the same thing will continuously happen in your life unless you are actually working with it. You are learning from these lessons. Why does this keep happening to me? How am I reacting to these situations? What can I learn from this? How can I leverage this situation to be a better person? Everything that happens is a blessing in disguise. It might not look like it at the time that it's happening. You might think that you are very unfortunate, that why is this happening to me? But I can bet you, as long as you play your cards right, in the future you'll be looking back on this moment and thinking, okay, I was actually fortunate to experience that because I learned an invaluable lesson or an invaluable skill, or develop some very valuable wisdom from this experience that can't be counterfeited. You can't learn that through books. You can't learn that through watching YouTube videos. You have to go through these experiences sometimes to really acquire the most important wisdom in your life. Another thing that this is teaching me is that everything is impermanent at the end of the day, and everything is a blip. What is painful and unfortunate and puts us in a difficult situation at the time, it never lasts. I look back to the other times that things went wrong in my life, that I went through some very difficult ordeal, and it's always temporary. Life can take my stuff, but it can never take my experiences. It can never take 10 years worth of traveling. It can never take the wisdom that I've accumulated throughout this time traveling. And that is something that, to me, is invaluable, because it has changed my life, it has changed my outlook, it has changed the way that I perceive the world, the way that I perceive myself. So I do believe that this is a blessing in disguise. I do believe that there is something good to come from this situation, and that is going to, manifest and unfold. But in saying that, all of this has to be genuine. You can't bypass your emotions. You can't just skip going through the hard yards. It does take a lot of life experience and a lot of practice and a lot of, unfortunately, shitty circumstances in your life to develop that innate wisdom that it sort of comes out naturally when something like this happens, and you're not overly upset, you're not freaking out, you're not panicking. Some emotions come up, but at the same time there's a deeper stillness, a deeper acceptance, knowing that, okay, everything's going to be okay. And if you are really going through something terrible, your emotions are all over the place, you need to just work on processing that. You need to sit with that. You need to meditate. Try doing breath work. There's many things you can do to go inwards and allow these emotions to come up and experience them and learn from them, because when you learn from these emotions, when you gain all the lessons out of it and like squeeze it out like a sponge, that is when, you know, the negative emotion surrounding it tends to die down. I feel like a painful situation or emotion or circumstance will linger in your life for as long as there are messages or there is information remaining in that. So if you do your best when something happens, when you're in some sort of difficult circumstance, to sit with that experience, to wring out all of that juicy information, all of that knowledge, all of that wisdom, everything that's coming up, everything that you're experiencing, and really just listen to that, understand it, try and make sense of it, try and understand what the world is teaching you, what you can learn through this circumstance. That is when the pain will start fading away. But it only happens if you actually go inwards and you listen to that. Thank you, take care of yourself, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you hopefully in the next video.